Hi everyone, this should be one of those videos, it really should be two compass videos. On February the 25th, yesterday, we had two astrological events that were important and of significance. And the more I thought about them and the little bit that I researched them, the more, I think people who do readings with me and people who've been following my channel know that I'm a bit of a skeptical astrologer, and my philosophy always is whatever you hear, whether it is on this channel or elsewhere, test it. Make sure that it makes sense to you, make sure it comes true, make sure it feels right, and that the evidence shows up. And every now and then, even in the work that I do, stuff shows up in ways, or correlations occur in ways that don't always make sense, but that are sort of unmistakably inspiring as an astrologer. Two dates related to the eclipse cycle that I mentioned, related to the solar eclipse in Capricorn on December the 25th, 2019, are February the 25th, yesterday, and May the 4th. February 25th being 2 months after the new moon solar eclipse in Capricorn, and May the 4th being 2 months before the lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse in Capricorn on July the 4th. Now, I don't know why it is, and this is not something I've read anywhere. This is just something that I have experienced. This has been my epiphany. But for some reason, these 2 months after a solar eclipse, 2 months before a lunar eclipse, really bring important messages, clarity, information, developments related to the eclipse cycle that we are currently under. And right now we are under a Capricorn eclipse cycle. The thing that is so remarkable, as I was doing the research about the February 25th date and the May the 4th date, is that on both these dates, Mercury is conjunct the Sun. And that blows my mind. Just given the nature of what we're going through, and if you are a non-astrologer, as most of you are listening to this, you don't need to be mind blown by that, but I certainly am. And I found it sort of thrilling and chilling and extraordinary when I thought about this particular correlation. Now, 2 months after a new moon solar eclipse means that we're going to be very close to another new moon. A month is 30 to 31 days, and a new moon cycle is 28 days. And sure enough, we had a new moon on February the 23rd. But the thing that I find about February the 25th is that the news or the information that occurs isn't new moony, it's full moony. It's intense. If you think about what we're going through, if you think about the headlines the week before and week after Feb 25th, and I've asked you to pay attention to news, personal news that may be coming to you the week before and week after Feb 25th, and how to correlate it to events related to the Capricorn eclipse cycle, specifically Jan the 5th, March the 5th, May the 16th, and July the 16th of 2019, and December 25th, 2019, February 25th, 2020, May the 4th, 2020, and July the 4th, 2020. These will give you important clues as to what it is that needs to be released. Now, the nodes are transiting a particular part of the chart for a period of time. So it's not that we're ever out of an eclipse cycle. It's not that because we're in the Capricorn eclipse cycle, that the Cancer eclipses are not active. It's not as if these eclipses, the eclipse of leaning into, or moving into or moving towards in Cancer, or the eclipses of releasing something in the sign of Capricorn, it isn't as if they're in constant communication. But the dates are interesting and important. And as I've mentioned, all these dates will not carry the same weight. But the title of this video is going to be quite simply, what or who is being eclipsed out of your life? And for some people, this answer will be clear, and for some people, it's going to provide perhaps no information at all, but for a lot of us, it might provide signals or premonitions, information. And because this particular February 25th date falls when Mercury is retrograde, we may get premonitions. Our intuition, eclipses, as I've said to you before, are when God takes the wheel and things that are fated occur, or things that are somehow right for us or good for us occur, or things that are karmic occur. God has taken the wheel, and there are certain there are certain elements of our life right now that are out of control, and change is imminent, and the nature of the change can be somewhat sudden or shocking or surprising, and when it happens, when Mercury is retrograde, the change occurs and our intuition is flagging something to us and we are on this hyper alert, but the mind isn't really able to process it. Things are still unclear. We don't quite know exactly what is going on and where things are going to lead, unless this February 25th date has really brought something into culmination. So unless you're Harvey Weinstein, or perhaps on a more positive and wished for note, Bob Iger, the gentleman who resigned from being the head of Disney, but is still going to be there. These are eclipsy news items, occurrences, resignations, something comes to it. But they're new moon things, but they're really full moon things. And so that makes this particular new moon on, I'm going to say let the new moon in Pisces be the new moon in Pisces, conjunct Mercury retrograde, and let's keep the Pisces part of the chart a little separate from the Capricorn part of the chart. So if you know where Capricorn sits in your chart, that is where you need to look to try and answer the question, what or who is being eclipsed out of your life? And it does not mean that for everybody this is going to be strong and clear as a signal. For some people, the dates I have mentioned that have happened before, Jan 5th of last year, March 5th of last year, May 16th of last year, July 16th of last year, December 25th of this year, all those dates might bring some messages of clarity, but for some people it's February the 25th. And if it is February the 25th, or whatever's happening around the February the 25th, may not only bring up things from the past, but may have a level of lack of clarity around it. For people who are dealing with, in terms of what or who is eclipsed out of one's life, I'm going to remind you, eclipses bring, they can, especially an eclipse like this one, or the anniversary, can bring endings. So whether it is relationships that are ending, or news about people passing away, especially if it has kind of a sudden quality to it, the shootings today, coronavirus, there's just an intensity, the riots in India, there's an eclipsy intensity to what should be a Pisces new moon. New things, small things should be starting. We should be at the start, not at this kind of full moony craziness, but here we are. If it's a health-related issue or news or symptom, it could be a symptom flare-up, and then all those dates that I mentioned could be important to look at. Are there symptoms that are repeated that showed up after the week of January the 5th, 2019, or March the 5th, or May the 16th, or July the 16th, or February the 25th? Is it worth paying attention to? Was there some news you received about someone who is terminally ill or seriously ill? Some news come to you about someone's sudden passing. Was there suddenness to it? If someone is dealing with a prolonged illness, are there developments that are worth paying attention to that you got more information on? Sorry to harbor on the negative, but I've been talking about the week before February 25th and a week after for a little bit in these Compass videos and even in the New Moon and Pisces video. But I wanted specifically to ask the question for people who it is relevant, for whom it is relevant. Who or what is being eclipsed out of your life is the boldest question I will ask, and it will not apply to everyone. For some people, this question might bring a very clear answer. For some people, it might bring a, I wonder if this is what is going on. In which case, right now with Mercury retrograde, the best you can do is investigate and ask questions and put questions in the air. Because there isn't much clarity just yet. Mercury goes direct on March the 10th. There isn't much clarity just yet. And there may not exactly be complete clarity about what needs to be released. Is it something physical? Is it a relationship? Is it a job? Or is it something that you are doing or you are attached to, or a way of being that you are attached to that needs to be released? So you can't quite settle on it yet. But there may be an intuitive flagging of something coming to some sort of an ending, some sort of an eclipsy change being in the air. And either for some people, February 25th, the week before, week after was the date, or for some people, things are still unclear. I would advise and say that it is important not to reach dramatic conclusions. If we look at the timeline of the Harvey Weinstein affair, what is interesting about it is that the sentencing is on March the 10th, I believe, or somewhere along those, so just around the time when Mercury goes direct and around the time of the next full moon in Virgo. So who knows what develops between now and then. In any of these situations or cases, there's just a murkiness and a confusion, and you can't quite trust that anything that is going on now is completely clean and clear. And even this has, is he going to jail? Is he going to hospital? I don't want to focus on the morbid or the negative, but there is March 25th. March 25th, man. Not only is it the February 25th, sorry. Not only is it 2 months after December 25th, you also had Mars conjunct the South Node on that day and Mercury conjunct the Sun on that day. So important signals the week before and week after related to the eclipse, eclipsy behavior. And we're dealing with this on a global basis. I'm looking at some of the things that I quickly jotted down, talked about them. Candidacy, the Democrat debates, coronavirus, a lot that is still murky and a lot that is going to develop. One thing I'm going to say to you on this compass video is the time between February the 25th and May the 4th is often the most confusing, the most challenging. We are aware that changes have to be made. We are aware that we have to release something. We're aware that something is moving in a certain direction, but the momentum for many of us may pick up only the week before, week after May the 4th. And what is so striking, and I'm going to talk about the Mercury cycle in Pisces in a second, because that's the second thing I want to talk about in this video, is that on May the 4th, Mercury's conjunct the Sun again. What does that mean? It basically means a Mercury retrograde meets up in the same degree as the Sun it did yesterday. Mercury is going to keep going retrograde. The Sun is going to keep moving forward, of course. On March the 10th, Mercury goes direct. And on May the 4th, they meet up again. And for some reason this year, those dates coincide. And in Western astrology, Mercury conjunct the Sun provides, strangely enough, greater clarity. When it's Mercury retrograde with the Sun, it could be an intuitive clarity that has not yet met up with factual proof. Flashes, epiphanies, concerns. The intuition flags something burns off, something burns away, something becomes clear to our inner sight in some ways. But our mind does not yet have the data and the facts or the grounded information that it seeks. Okay, so where does this leave us? As I've said to you before, I've given the dates related to the Capricorn eclipse. I'm not going to give them again and bore you to tears. But week before February 25th, week after February 25th, and indeed as we get to February 25th, where something really, as we headed to this time with Mars conjunct the South Node, the planet of drive, the pushy planet, really comes to the point of release, to kind of, something needs to be released. For what does that mean for all of us? For some of us, maybe nothing, Abby. For many of us, there's something intuitive that is being signaled or flagged. And it could be a repeat of something or a development of something related to those now 5 dates that I've mentioned since January 5th, 2019. Okay. And for some of us, the week before Feb 25th and after Feb 25th, someone or something has been eclipsed from our lives, or their developments related to that. For some of us, whatever's happened is more aggressive than what you would expect at a Pisces new moon. Now, let's talk about the sign of Pisces. Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Pisces, and we had a new moon in Pisces on the 23rd. Mercury went retrograde on February the 17th. I can't really push and say that there's a correlation between Mercury going retrograde and this eclipse date, except that I can't ignore the fact that these two events are somehow related by virtue of the fact that an important eclipse conjunction and an important Mercury retrograde conjunction happen on the same day, which happens to be the 2-month eclipse anniversary of December 25th. So for some people, the idea of something being eclipsed or some sort of effect with regard to relationships may have occurred around communication, may have occurred around February the 17th, a few days before, a few days after. And that may somehow, and February the 17th, I mean, it's 1 week before February the 25th. Let's not split hairs. Now, with Mercury retrograde, I did a compass video a few weeks ago, I think, or a few days ago, that was titled A Screeching Halt. And I think that around February the 17th, as we headed to it, there was a need to kind of just be like, hold on. I need to make sense of certain things. When Mercury is moving direct and pretty fast, we move forward and we're communicating and certain things are happening and our intuition is flagging things, but we're like, let's ignore that, let's keep going. And then all of a sudden Mercury goes retrograde, and especially in Pisces, which I have described and explained is one of the signs where God talks to us, you know, where it's like, and it's the last sign of the zodiac, so a certain element of purging and sorting out and getting to the emotional truth of things becomes important, not in terms of aggression as much as in terms of release. It's not Scorpio, it's Pisces. So this kind of screeching halt around February the 17th, and since then, as we headed to it, and since then I need to take this apart. And that's a really good way to use Mercury retrograde. I use the word investigate. Now, when Mercury conjuncts the Sun in a particular sign, it starts a cycle. I think it's a 116-day cycle. I could be wrong. So this started yesterday, related to the sign and what that sign stands for in your chart. So if you know where Pisces is in your chart, and as I've mentioned, there was a crisis there in late 2015 and for much of 2016. There was Mercury retrograde there last year in March and April, and here we are again. So if those dates coincide with what you're experiencing thematically, here we are. And yesterday there was an initiation. You may have been getting downloads, intuitive downloads, or information, probably on the intuitive side, that made you resolve. And if it didn't make you resolve, I would advise you, I think it should make you resolve to take action on something related to where Pisces is in your chart. Now, the first phase of this is from Mercury's conjunction with the Sun yesterday to when Mercury goes direct on March the 10th. And it continues to be a time of investigation. One could almost say scoping out the project. You know, when you start a project, there's a certain phase before where you're collecting requirements, you're collecting information, you're meeting with people. Someone says, here, go do this project. Or you say to yourself, this is a project I want to undertake. And you pick up the phone. One could say, well, Abhi, picking up the phone is a terrible thing to do while Mercury's retrograde. And I would agree. But it's the equivalent of, let me research this, let me investigate this, let me ask the questions, let me really understand what's going on, let me gather data, let me investigate, let me look at the details. I'm not going to, one thing that is coming up for me again to say is this is not a time to reach decisions. Decisions made while Mercury's retrograde may well have to change after March the 10th. This is not a time to make agreements. This is not a time to sign on the dotted line. This is not a time to fix anything. It is a good time to investigate. So if you're being asked to sign on the dotted line for some reason, look at that piece of paper 3 or 4 times, look at every word, look at every detail, miss nothing. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Get clear. This is not a time to avoid details. From an eclipse perspective, there's a need to acknowledge if you've had something sudden or horrible happen to you, or even something positive happen to you, to just get a sense of the out-of-ordinary developments that have been occurring the week before February 25th and after February 25th, and just kind of make note of them. If you're getting a premonition that eclipsiness is at work, your life is not in your control, and especially as it is not the week before February 25th and after, then make note of what those could be. And if they are developments of the dates that I've mentioned, then make note of those and understand that we're going into a phase where we're going to be put into, and I've used this analogy before, we're going to be put into a hallway and there's only one door out, but we're going to be put in this phase where the walls are going to get narrower and narrower, and it's going to be confusing, and we're not going to know what that door is as we head towards May the 4th and then July the 4th. But in this time, we're going to be knocking on multiple doors, and it is necessary to knock on multiple doors, because out of all the doors you knock on, all but one will remain closed however hard you knock on it, and one of them you will just barely have to walk up to it, and it will fly open and it will pull you in. That's how eclipses work. It's not in your control, but you've got to play with that energy. Okay, when it comes to Mercury retrograde conjunct the Sun yesterday in a different sign, in the sign of Pisces, even though there's a conjunct narrative between all of this somehow. When it comes to Mercury retrograde conjunct the Sun, yesterday marks the start of a new project where Pisces is in your chart. So if you know which house Pisces sits in and what it stands for, by all means, between now and Mercury going direct March the 10th, if you feel like there are things that you need to tackle, and these are things that you would tackle in about a 4-month time frame, 116 days, 4 months, this is the time for you to start scoping. You already know this. I wouldn't be surprised if yesterday or even today you're just like, let me write down the aim of this project, the goals of this project, or the project statement, or whatever it is. But there is a requirements gathering phase, sort of get corporate on you. And that's what you are entering. You will have conversations, you will ask questions, and likely then you will execute on them between March the 10th and May the 4th. Strangely enough, as I said, which blew me away as I was preparing for this, May the 4th is another important date with a Capricorn eclipse. So the signs of Pisces and Capricorn are in some sort of strange conversation. Okay. I hope you found this useful. This is one of my more important compass videos. As I said, I wanted to break it into two, but putting two videos together on the same day, who knows how much play they'll get. And I want this video to get a certain amount of play because I think it's important and it's useful. And for all the dramatic eclipsey, full moony events that have been happening last week and this week, as awful as some of them are, and I'm thinking, for example, about the riots in India and some of the sudden passings that have come to my attention for people personally, or the stresses that people are feeling right now, confusion, there is a need to be patient because it is not a time where a lot is going to make sense. A lot is going to be confusing. A lot is going to seem unfair. But the mental narrative is not clear. There's a need to investigate. Okay, if you found this video useful, feel free to share it, talk about it, discuss it with your friends, whatever it is, get the word out. Please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified whenever I do another video. My contact information is in the subject area. You can contact me to inquire about prices related to readings, or if you want me to make an easy to read version of your chart, I can do that for you as well. And that's it. Until next time. Thanks. Bye.